Grand Theft Auto V is quite possibly one of the biggest video games of all time. The game references and makes fun of just about every aspect of pop culture, and even real life in some cases. It's the kind of game you can play several times and still notice little nuances you might not have caught the first few times around.
You see, this mystery all began in 2013, when Grand Theft Auto V had just come out, and players started to notice something fishy was going on at Mount Chiliad, the tallest mountain in the game. I'll explain the exact details soon, but a bunch of Easter eggs and clues were discovered that indicated there was a strange supernatural secret the mountain was hiding. Spoiler alert, aliens, Bigfoot, and ghosts were involved. Rockstar did such a good job at hiding certain details that some are barely being found after almost 7 years of being undisturbed in the game. We'll start at the beginning, when the first Grand Theft Auto V players noticed something suspicious at the mountain, and work our way through the mystery's evolution over the following 7 years. Alrighty, so you might think our story would start in September of 2013, when GTA 5 first came out. However, the Chiliad investigation actually began before then. You see, prior to the game's release, Rockstar had been teasing GTA with a number of trailers and screenshots. The developers were obviously very proud of the massive world they had built, and were showing it off non-stop. There was a popular myth among San Andreas players that Bigfoot can be found on Mount Chiliad, and that gained a lot of steam in early forums. Even more startling was that many Bigfoot sightings were reported at an abandoned shed on the mountain. On September 13th, 2013, the day Grand Theft Auto V officially launched, you better believe folks immediately flocked to the location. Turns out the big mysterious shed was actually just a lift station for a cable car that could transport people between the summit of Mount Chiliad and the ground. Although, something was still fishy. You see, on one of the walls of this station was a very odd mural of sorts. This painting depicted what seemed to be Mount Chiliad, with 8 boxes inside of it, and an eye, or maybe UFO, on top of it. Oh, yeah, and there are some lightning bolts coming from the hill as well.
Let's start at the beginning. Well, technically it's the end, but the first major clue we received is the Chiliad Mural itself. Named after its location, Mount Chiliad, which is based on the real-life location of Mount Shasta in Northern California. The mural depicts a similar mountain surrounded by thunder, with a progression which seems to flow from top to bottom, or vice versa. Maybe it flows sideways, we don't really know for sure. There are a number of boxes containing X's. On the bottom row are boxes containing a UFO, a cracked egg, and a man with a jetpack. So, what does it mean? There have been many interpretations of this mural. Some think it's a literal representation of the mountain, and that the mystery has been solved with the discovery of nearby glyphs on the mountain. Some feel it needs to be reshaped and overlaid onto a map of the island. Others feel it may be a symbolic representation of the decisions that the player makes throughout the game. It could just be Rockstar trolling the masses. They do that sometimes.
I just think that all of these signs and symbols what are on the mural can be found somewhere in the game, and that there somehow is a connection between all of these, symbols. So, just giving an example, on the mural you have the 3 main boxes, the UFO, the cracked egg, and the jetpack. We have already found the UFO or UFOs in the game, meaning we found the first box already, but we haven't found the other 2 boxes and the rest of the mural yet. So my guess is, if we find all what is displayed on the mural, that we need to find the triggers, do the steps in order, and work ourselves to the end of this massive Easter egg.
As far as the X's, I think that's pretty straightforward actually. We have exactly 5 glyphs on the mountain. We have exactly 5 X's on the mural. The mural is basically a map of the mountain. So I do believe that those X's are on the mural. And
unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to confirm nor deny that. There really isn't any information on it. I'm not too sure. I know there's a lot of speculation on, Easter eggs and things of that nature. But here at Rockstar Technical Support, like I said, our goal is to listen to technical issues. I don't really have any information regarding the Mount Chiliad Mystery and things like that.
5 paintings were soon discovered around the mountain, each featuring the eye symbol that we saw on the mural. In 3 of these paintings, the eye was clearly above a different symbol. One had it atop of a crescent moon, another had it atop of a mountain, and another had the eye on top of some storm clouds. The Grand Theft Auto universe is no stranger to creatures from the stars either. Off the northern coast of the map, deep beneath the sea, lies a crashed UFO that can only be reached via submarine thanks to the high undersea water pressure. South of the Alamo Lake, quite a ways away from Mount Chiliad, is a small, rural hippie camp set up near some train tracks. It's populated by, well, hippies that happen to be huge alien enthusiasts and who decorated their surroundings with colorful, extraterrestrial-friendly paintings and artwork. At first, it's easy to write these guys off as just a bunch of crazy people. They may be onto something though, as among the various designs painted on their hill are 2 of the same glyphs we spotted at Chiliad. A viewing platform on the mountain's peak was quickly discovered to have the phrase, "Come back when your story is complete," ominously carved into it, with the same eye symbol painted on the ground beneath. If the player returns to Mount Chiliad as Franklin after achieving 100% completion of the game, that means beating the main story, all the side missions, challenges, etc., obviously a pretty difficult thing to do, a new side quest would become available at Mount Chiliad, where a crazy man would approach Franklin and ask that you help him hunt down Bigfoot.
Change? You did! You! 2-bit gangster gone 3-bit!
I thought we were going to my cousin. Will you tell me the story?
So, deeper into the rabbit hole we go. Who placed the mural there? Well, obviously a Rockstar employee, but in canon there's a few possibilities. Hippies, Omega, the government, cultists, aliens, some form of pseudo-deity. It's really anyone's guess.
People did everything. They had their characters wait at the mountain for in-game years worth of time to see what would happen. They tried modding their consoles to no-clip inside of the hill and see if there was anything there. Thousands of hours were collectively invested in the hopes of finding some big, really well-hidden secret that could explain everything. Between late 2014 and early 2015, Grand Theft Auto V released in a special version for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. This new and improved version of GTA 5, or GTA 5.2 as I like to call it, took advantage of the increased power of the new consoles, and added many new features and mechanics. It also finally expanded the Chiliad Mystery in 2 ways. It, 1, added some totally new content that contained new clues, and 2, it gave PC users a much easier way to access the game files and comb through anything we could have missed. Another huge thing next-gen GTA 5 did was scatter/hide 27 new unique collectible plants, resembling tiny cactuses around the map. Whenever the player found one of these cactuses, they could choose to take a bite out of it and briefly transform into an animal. Yeah, an animal. You could become an eagle, a shark, a bear, a bunny, a pig, you get the idea. Well, while there were 27 cactuses found by players, data miners uncovered a model and texture file for a certain golden cactus plant. Like clockwork, the player base started scouring the land for wherever Rockstar might have hid this special golden collectible, hoping it would offer us the chance to transform into a special critter like a kraken or unicorn or I don't know. In late 2015, someone actually found the item in-game. Interacting with the golden collectible would transform the player into Bigfoot. Hilariously, as Bigfoot, you could still operate certain vehicles, and got to utilize a rather powerful melee-like punch attack.
which further led to a playable Teen Wolf character. Oh, Rockstar, your love of the 80s is very cute, but the players won't be satisfied until they have that flyable UFO or jetpack.
Now, admittedly, there is a lot of conflicting info regarding whether or not GTA and Red Dead share a continuous universe, or elements of a continuous universe. And Undead Nightmare may not have been canonized anyway, but in the DLC, we could get a side quest where a Sasquatch hunter would request you help him hunt down Bigfoots. He claimed they were terrorizing the area. Sound familiar? Data miners were able to uncover files relating to an unused jetpack. Now, a model and texture were not found, but there was source code left behind linked to this jetpack vehicle, and the source code was only added in 2014, when Rockstar released their 1.12 patch. It wasn't from the vanilla game itself. Furthermore, completed models and textures were found for an unused green egg and an unused UFO that never appeared in-game. Huh, so we have a missing jetpack, egg, and UFO. Some speculated that maybe these items were supposed to have had something to do with the UFO, egg, and jetpack featured at the bottom of the Chiliad Mural.
Michael is often presented with optional missions to help his family, and Trevor has the option to sell hitchhikers to a local cult. These are just a few examples of the obvious choices the player is given throughout the game. Some are a lot more obscure, like paying tens of thousands of in-game dollars to join an optional pyramid scheme / religion known as Epsilonism, which according to the online elements of the game is the one true religion. Make of that what you will.
Now, with all of this potential extraterrestrial activity, many players look towards the Epsilon program. The Epsilon program, for those of you who don't know, is a religious faction in the Grand Theft Auto universe that's, well, it's out there. However, where things get interesting is in Red Dead Redemption 2. Released in December of 2019, Rockstar's Ode to America's Old West was definitely one of the best games of this current console generation. As someone who's still very bitter about Red Dead Online, it's hard not to appreciate what Rockstar did with the single-player base game itself. If the player traveled to a cabin northwest of the town of Strawberry, they could meet a man named Francis Sinclair. Francis is a very weird fellow. He spoke in a strange dialect and utilized certain words here and there that didn't make sense, and some of which we had never heard before. He would offer us a side quest called Geology for Beginners to locate 10 rock carvings all across the map and bring back their location to him. His reasoning was very vague, but he promised to pay handsomely, so whatever, old man. And then he just wouldn't come out. We could enter the structure ourselves to figure out why Mr. Sinclair hadn't come out yet, and he wouldn't be inside. It's like the man just vanished from thin air. And interestingly, all around the cabin were various strange drawings. But the birthmark he carried on his face has led many players to identify a connection between him and GTA's Epsilon organization. Additionally, in Red Dead Redemption 2, in an abandoned shack in New Hanover, players can discover a horrifying scene that's also linked to extraterrestrials and time travel.
With a game as deeply detailed as Grand Theft Auto 5, and from what's been solved so far, the only certainty is that just about anything is possible. There are a lot of leads still being followed up on, and maybe some unrelated Easter eggs or red herrings, but there are lots of investigation methods at play, and just about every aspect of the game is being put under the microscope. So let's talk about some of the most interesting mystery-related locations and leads. The first major unresolved hint that players have was discovered directly after the game's release. It's a sign in front of a burger joint with what appears to be a cipher. The game sometimes does use gibberish to fill text, mostly lorem ipsum however, and this seems to be an intentional hint. Located not far from the mural itself and also near a broken egg clock, codewalkers have determined that the numbers and letters on the sign are much like similar signs in the real world, and that the texture file is not of the message as a whole, but a spread of alphanumeric characters, which means the designer intentionally placed each character with an intention. While the code was passed on to cipher experts all over the internet, no solution has been found as of yet. This may be key to crack the whole thing, and it's been right in front of our eyes, taunting us the whole time. Or it could just be Rockstar trolling the masses. They do that sometimes. In a similar vein, there are also strange undeciphered highway numbers and symbols discovered only to exist on next-gen releases.
I do think the highway numbers are important. The problem is the highway numbers also weren't there in the older versions of the game. Since they were added in next gen, you have to assume they're next gen. But if you look at something like the hamburger sign fades when you go into low graphics, meaning that people on low graphic PCs couldn't see it. Whereas the highway sign does not change in graphics at all. It's one solid texture, which means it was meant to be seen.
And beginning in 2017, leading up until now, Grand Theft Auto Online got a series of updates that got us closer than ever before. Remember the unused jetpack, UFO, and egg from the game's files I mentioned earlier? Well, there was a very popular theory that they were all going to be featured in a certain DLC that got cut from the game that would have revolved around zombies and an alien invasion. The game file gurus were able to forcefully start it in-game, and this secret supply mission would send the player to a crashed UFO near Fort Zancudo to pick up an alien egg and drop it off at a bunker. In this new multiplayer storyline, the player and their friends would have to stop a billionaire by the name of Avon Hertz from destroying the world using a variety of nuclear missiles that he purchased/hacked. And we would learn that Avon Hertz's secret headquarters was an old military base buried beneath Mount Chiliad that he had purchased from the government a few years ago. While we were inside the underground structure, we'd find all sorts of weird futuristic technologies that the US government shouldn't have had access to in the 1960s. And players also noticed that on some of the walls of this Chiliad mountain base were weird painted murals that the game didn't explain. In total, there were 4 new murals added onto the various walls of the Chiliad base, and I'm simply showing you a combined image of all 4 on screen now. As you can see, they each depicted a variety of strange symbols, a few of which were familiar. The yellow mural appeared to be space-themed, and there were numerous symbols depicting UFOs, the moon, star maps, and the original Chiliad painting. The second red mural looked to be physics-focused and showed off atoms, cells, and the likes, though we're a little less sure about what that one means. The third green mural was Bigfoot-themed, and showed off a picture of a cactus plant, showed off a picture of Bigfoot emerging from an evolution diagram, and prominently featured the number 27, the number of normal cactus plants in the game. The final purple one was all about the human mind, and showed off the yin and yang symbol, a balanced scale, a lightning bolt, an epsilon logo, and another eye. Beyond that though, we were still left to wonder what this facility's primary objectives were, and we still had no idea what the original Chiliad painting meant. With the Doomsday Heist update, we finally seem to identify the UFO, egg, and jetpack depicted on the original painting, and we had gotten to see what was inside of the mountain itself. However, we were now left with more questions than ever before. You see, in August of 2020, GTA Online got a summer update that released a whole variety of new vehicles, missions, etc. You get the idea by now. Just like they did for the Gunrunners update, those GameFile Gurus data miners decided to dive through the files of this new patch, and in it, they found another secret mission. It was basically another supply run mission. However, this one would send the player to Fort Zancudo to pick up parts from a UFO inside one of the hangars and drop them off at an HQ. So far, everything seems to suggest that the United States must have somehow got a hold of a crashed alien spacecraft and was able to reverse engineer some of the technology. Now, what the US is planning to do with this new tech, and why aliens originally came to the planet, still has yet to be figured out. But we're a lot further than ever before. Now, Rockstar has recently confirmed that Grand Theft Auto 5 will be getting another re-release on the upcoming PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. This will be the third version of GTA 5 to come out, and many people believe that just like the second version, this third version will also be making some very big revelations. Many players also believe Rockstar will be releasing Grand Theft Auto 6 sometime in the next 2 to 5 years. But that'll probably all depend on how well GTA Online keeps doing. We know Mount Chiliad concerns aliens, Bigfoot, it may even concern a giant alien of sorts, but there's still a lot that needs to be figured out. And to this day, we still don't exactly know for sure what that original mural meant in the first place. Hopefully someday soon, we'll be getting our answers.